during the estimation, what we need to have is a clear idea, benchmark as to what that one story point literally means. And that would mean that we're actually talking about the size of the work involved. And then what is the quantum of the work, the amount of work? When you say amount of work, how much do I need to spend on this one? The time could be the time. And how complex the work is. So complexity. You spend the same time, but then because sometimes it's very complex, it would take a lot longer time. For example, if you want to apply kind of a specialized coat on the wall, it would take, for example, even if you apply simple, with the same brush, or you are trying to use a roller, it might take 15 minutes per wall more than, for example, the same thing if you're trying to apply the normal one. So it's a complexity involved there that would be different, right? So in the same context, in the context of e-commerce, web application, website we're talking about, there, if you want to build something completely ground up, where you do not have any tool that you're using using Magenta or for example, WordPress, they've got WooCommerce, which is an e-commerce equivalent of shopping cart functionality and shopping module that comes packaged with WordPress. It's called WooCommerce. So you can use WooCommerce, and then if you use WooCommerce in your website, it's already developed using WordPress. Obviously, your complexity gets lesser because it works well with your WordPress. So you can have better control, and you have got ready-made templates, you've got ready-made plugins, as what they call in WordPress. So you're going to spend lesser time and lesser energy in getting something out than when you start afresh developing something on HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and all these technologies. So what does that mean? That means that you're actually, this part of work, which is developing it from the ground up, is going to be far more complex than, for example, using a ready-made plugin or a template, something that is already there, that works well integrated with the technology stack that you already have. So all of those come to picture. And then of course, the important thing is the potential risks involved in doing that work, right? So what that goes again back to the complexity in terms of, for example, if it's tried and tested, if it's something that's already there, then the risk is lesser, but it's not invented here. It's something that is new. If it's an innovative tool, if it's a new technology that have just come up with, for example, you're talking about DevOps implementation. It's still fresh. It's not much stabilized, not much of what we call as saturation has not set in. So in which case, if you want to adopt this DevOps approach into your company, and you need to actually give a little bit more time because it's less, it's less certain. You don't have a good control on all the factors around it because it's relatively new. So you need to give higher weightage in terms of the risk there. For example, if you want to try and use Agile has now come more or less like for example, Scrum 10 years ago would be the same situation. People were not familiar with Scrum. They were not really understanding what Scrum is, how to structure the teams. The project manager was acting as a Scrum master, and then people didn't have a good understanding in terms of what a sprint planning is. So 10 years ago, Scrum, if you adopt Scrum as a methodology to develop the website application, the e-commerce website we were talking about, then it's higher risk. Obviously, the complexity is more there. So it takes a lot of more time compared with, for example, what it is taking now. Because now Scrum has actually kind of set in, people have a better idea. We've already done some projects with Scrum. The team is well matured in terms of the processes, the methodology. So we have better idea in terms of how we can execute this project using Scrum. So in that context, your risk is lesser now compared with that. So it's not just about the technology. It's also about the underlying methodology, the process that you have adopted. And also, for example, in terms of the platform or the technologies, mobile first is a strategy nowadays. If you want to start with mobile application first, or see how it would actually work on the mobile phone, and then look at the web application or website, because that's the strategy nowadays. People are using more and more mobile phones, and they're using all the apps. They're comfortable using the mobile phones and mobile apps than they were 10 years ago. So the devices also come into picture, the platforms, the operating systems, how they use it, all of these, the technologies. Are you using, for example, Bootstrap? Then that would actually work well with a responsive design app. So you don't have to really have another native mobile app like iOS developed app or Java developed Android app. So you actually have the app which actually kind of degenerates very gracefully if you're using a mobile phone. So all of these factors would come into the picture when you try and assess and estimate the size using the story points. You need to be aware and consider all these factors when you give a weightage to particular